We must begin by destroying the most common and most toxic myth of our civilization. The myth that to get what you want, you must try, you must hustle. You must force the world to bend to your will. We are taught this from our first day in school. Try harder, give it 110%, never give up. We see this philosophy celebrated in our culture as the pinnacle of virtue. We idolize the grinder, the person who sacrifices sleep, health, and peace of mind in the name of a goal. We believe that the amount of effort we expend is directly proportional to the results we will receive. We treat life as a mathematical equation. More effort equals more success. More struggle equals more reward. We must begin by destroying the most common and most toxic myth of our civilization. The myth that to get what you want, you must try, you must hustle. You must force the world to bend to your will. We are taught this from our first day in school. Try harder, give it 110%, never give up. We see this philosophy celebrated in our culture as the pinnacle of virtue. We idolize the grinder, the person who sacrifices sleep, health, and peace of mind in the name of a goal. We believe that the amount of effort we expend is directly proportional to the results we will receive. We treat life as a mathematical equation. More effort equals more success. More struggle equals more reward. But what if this entire concept is a lie? A profound and exhausting miscalculation of how reality actually operates. What if the very act of trying is the single greatest obstacle standing between you and the life you desire? If you have ever felt this internal friction, if you have ever pushed against a door with all your might, only to realize, exhausted, that it was a pull door, if you have felt that the harder you chase love, the faster it runs away, or the more desperately you seek happiness, the more elusive it becomes, then you have already sensed the truth. You have touched the edge of a great secret. This is not a message of laziness. It is not an invitation to apathy or resignation. It is instead a call to a higher form of intelligence, a more elegant, effective, and powerful way of being. The universe, you see, does not respond to brute force. It does not reward desperation. It responds to alignment. It rewards clarity. It rewards the person who is in harmony with the current, not the one who is frantically swimming against it. The central thesis is this: trying is, by its very nature, a state of psychological conflict. The word try itself is an admission of doubt. It implies the possibility of failure. It divides you against yourself. There is the you who wants the thing and the you who is resisting. When you are trying to be happy, you are reinforcing the fact that you are not happy. Your focus is on the lack of happiness. When you are trying to be confident before a big presentation, you are broadcasting your own insecurity to every cell in your body. When you are trying to force a relationship to work, you are implicitly admitting that it is already broken. The effort itself is the problem. The strain, the force, the internal battle, this is the noise that drowns out the signal. Now, the logical mind, the conditioned mind, immediately objects. It screams, "This is absurd. Are you telling me to sit on the couch and simply visualize a different life? Are you suggesting that empires are built, skills are mastered, and bodies are healed through pure passivity?" This is the fundamental misunderstanding. This is the black and white trap that keeps people locked in struggle. We are not talking about action versus inaction. We are talking about force versus flow. We are distinguishing between the frantic, desperate, anxious energy of trying and the calm, focused, inevitable power of doing. Consider the master archer. The novice tries to hit the target. He grips the bow too tightly. His muscles are tense. His mind is screaming, "Don't miss, don't miss." He is focused on the outcome, on the fear of failure. His effort is high, but it is scattered. The master archer does not try. He becomes the bow, the arrow, and the target. His mind is still. His body is relaxed. He has practiced so much that the action flows through him. He simply draws the string and releases. He is not trying to hit the target. He is simply allowing the arrow to fly where it must. Consider the rower. The novice who tries to move his boat forward splashes water everywhere. He fights the current. He exhausts his muscles. He is a picture of struggle. The rower who is rowing is different. He is one with the water. His movements are precise, fluid, and effective. He does not fight the river, he uses it. The first rower is trying. The second rower is being. The sage, the wise figures of history, whether you call them Stoics or Taoists, understood this principle deeply. They had different names for it. The Taoists called it Wu Wei, which translates to non-doing or effortless action. The philosopher Alan Watts, who translated many of these ideas for the West, often called it the law of reversed effort. He stated it simply: in all things psychological, the harder you try, the less you succeed. You cannot force yourself to be happy. You can only create the conditions for happiness to arise. You cannot force yourself to sleep. You can only create an environment of relaxation that invites sleep. You cannot force someone to love you. You can only be lovable. Our modern culture has conditioned us to live in a state of chronic trying. We are trying to fall asleep, which keeps us wide awake. We are trying to forget a painful memory, which only burns it deeper into our minds. We are trying to impress others at a party, which makes us seem inauthentic and needy. We are living in a constant state of self-conflict. The goal, then, is not to try harder. The goal is to stop trying and to start aligning. To do this, you must understand the 7 core paradoxes of effort. You must learn to identify the specific ways your trying is sabotaging your results. You must unlearn the habit of brute force and learn the art of Wu Wei. We begin with the first paradox. The first paradox, the paradox of control. This is the trap of the micromanager, the worrier, the person who believes that if they just grip the world tightly enough, it will not spin out of orbit. The behavior looks like this. You try to control every outcome. You plan for every contingency. You attempt to manage the emotions, perceptions, and actions of other people. You live in a constant state of vigilance, trying to prevent chaos. The psychology behind this is, quite simply, fear. It is a profound lack of trust in the process of life itself. It is the belief that without your constant, anxious intervention, everything will fall apart. You have appointed yourself the general manager of the universe, and it is an exhausting, impossible job. The consequence is that the more you try to control everything, the more out of control you feel. By trying to manage every variable, you become hyper-aware of the infinite variables you cannot manage. Your anxiety does not decrease, it multiplies. You become rigid, brittle, and incapable of adapting. The sage understands that true power is not found in control, but in surrender to the flow. You cannot control the wind or the waves, but you can learn to set your sail. You control your response, not the world. When you stop trying to control the uncontrollable, you free up 100% of your energy to focus on the one thing you can control, your own state of being. You stop fighting the river and, in doing so, you gain the power to navigate it. The second paradox, the paradox of happiness. This is perhaps the most personal and painful trap. We are a culture obsessed with trying to be happy. We chase it through achievements, possessions, substances, and experiences. The behavior is a constant pursuit. You believe happiness is a destination. I will be happy when I get the promotion. I will be happy when I find a partner. I will be happy when I lose the weight. Your life becomes a checklist of prerequisites for joy. The psychology here is a fundamental error in vision. You are treating happiness as an object to be acquired from the outside, like a new car. But happiness is not an object, it is a byproduct. It is the natural state that arises when your internal conflicts cease. The danger is that the very act of chasing happiness guarantees you will never catch it, because the chase itself is a state of unhappiness. The chase implies lack. You are telling your mind, I am not happy now. You are reinforcing a state of discontent. The sage knows that happiness is not found by trying to be happy. It is found by being present. It is found in the quiet acceptance of the moment, exactly as it is. It is the effortless state that emerges when you stop telling yourself that something is missing. When you stop trying to grasp it, the pressure in your hand is released, and you find it was there all along. The third paradox, the paradox of love. This is the fallacy of the chase that dominates our romantic stories. We see people trying to win someone's affection. The behavior involves performance. You change who you are to be what you think the other person wants. You become a chameleon. You text incessantly, you create grand gestures, you try to prove your worthiness. You are, in effect, a salesperson trying to close a deal. The psychology is rooted in scarcity and a lack of self-worth. You believe that love is something you must earn or win. You believe that your authentic self is not enough to be loved. You are operating from a place of need, not a place of abundance. The consequence is that you repel the very thing you seek. Desperation has a scent, and it is not attractive. True connection cannot be forced. It can only be discovered. When you try to capture love, you are holding a mask. The other person may fall for the mask, but they can never connect with you. The relationship, if it forms, is built on a foundation of anxiety and inauthenticity. The sage understands that you do not try to get love. You become a source of love. You focus on your own alignment, your own passion, your own wholeness. You become the lighthouse, and the ships are naturally drawn to your light. You do not chase, you attract. The fourth paradox, the paradox of skill. This is the wall that every student, athlete, and artist hits. It is the moment where trying harder actually makes you perform worse. The behavior is called overthinking. The golfer tries to perfect his swing, analyzing every joint and angle, and suddenly he can't hit the ball at all. The musician tries to play the complex piece perfectly, and her fingers become stiff and clumsy. The speaker tries to remember every word of his speech, and his mind goes blank. The psychology is a shift in a part of the brain. When you have practiced a skill, it moves to the implicit, automatic parts of your mind, the flow state. When you try, you are interrupting this automatic process with your conscious, analytical mind. You are getting in your own way. You are like a centipede trying to figure out which leg to move first, and in doing so, it trips over itself. The consequence is paralysis. By analysis, your performance shatters. You choke. The sage, the master of their craft, knows the importance of effortless effort. The practice is done with intense focus that is doing, but the performance is done with an empty mind. It is an act of trust. You must practice with your conscious mind, but you must perform with your unconscious. You must stop trying to do it right and simply allow it to be done through you. This is the secret of all mastery. The fifth paradox, the paradox of self-improvement. This is the insidious trap of the modern self-help industry. It is a multi-billion-dollar machine built on one premise. You are broken, and you must try to fix yourself. The behavior is a constant, frantic search for the next fix. You read every book, listen to every podcast, attend every seminar. You are trying to heal your trauma, trying to find your purpose, trying to optimize your morning routine. Your identity becomes that of a person who is working on themselves. The psychology is subtle but devastating. You have accepted the diagnosis that you are inherently flawed. Your self-improvement is not an act of joyful expansion. It is a war against your own perceived inadequacy. You are running from a shadow, and in doing so, you give it power. You are trying to get rid of your anxiety, which is a form of violence against your own mind. You are trying to destroy your lazy habits, which is an act of self-aggression. The consequence is that you get stuck in a permanent loop of healing that never actually heals. You are like a dog chasing its own tail. The very act of trying to fix yourself reinforces the belief that you are broken. The sage knows a different path. You were never broken to begin with. You are not a problem to be solved. You are a reality to be understood. You do not try to fix yourself. You observe yourself. You bring awareness, not judgment, to your patterns. You do not fight your anxiety. You sit with it. You ask it what it is trying to protect you from. You integrate. You do not amputate. True transformation is not an act of frantic effort. It is an act of radical self-acceptance. The sixth paradox, the paradox of persuasion. This is the error of the debater, the marketer, or anyone trying to change another person's mind. The behavior is the application of force. You argue, you present facts, you raise your voice, you try to push your idea into the other person's consciousness. You are focused on winning the argument, on making them see your point of view. The psychology is one of opposition. You are creating a battle. I am right and you are wrong. This immediately activates the other person's ego and defense mechanisms. When you push, it is human nature to push back. They are no longer listening to your logic. They are defending their identity. The consequence is that you do not create agreement, you create entrenchment. You make the other person more rigid in their position. You have not convinced them, you have merely alienated them. The wise salesperson, the master diplomat, the sage, never tries to persuade. They seek to understand. They ask questions. They listen. They find the point of common ground. They do not push their idea. They plant a seed. They create an environment where the other person can discover the idea for themselves, as if it were their own. You cannot force a mind to open. You can only present a key and invite them to turn it. The seventh paradox, the paradox of insomnia. This is the clearest and most immediate example of the law of reversed effort. It is the perfect metaphor for this entire philosophy. The behavior is known to millions. You are in bed. You know you need to sleep. You have a big day tomorrow. So you try to fall asleep. You tell yourself, sleep. Sleep now. You watch the clock. 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m. The more you try, the more your mind buzzes with activity. The psychology is pure self-conflict. The desire to sleep creates the anxiety that prevents sleep. You are pouring gasoline on the fire. You are ordering your brain to do something that can only happen when all orders cease. Sleep is not an action you do, it is a state you allow. It is an act of surrender. The consequence is, of course, exhaustion. You have willed yourself into a state of wired, anxious wakefulness. The sage knows that you cannot try to sleep. You can only invite it. You focus not on the act of sleeping, but on the act of relaxing. You bring your attention to your breath. You consciously release the tension in your shoulders, your jaw, your hands. You do not demand that your mind shut down. You simply observe your thoughts without engaging. You create the conditions of peace, and sleep arrives on its own, like a cat jumping onto your lap when you are finally still. These 7 paradoxes are not intellectual puzzles. They are mirrors. They are diagnostic tools for identifying where in your life you are applying force instead of flow, where you are trying instead of being. They reveal the subtle ways we have been conditioned to fight ourselves, to fight reality, and to exhaust our energy in battles that can never be won. To understand these paradoxes is to be given a key. The key is to shift from a life of friction to a life of wu-wei, or effortless action. So, what does this look, not just in theory, but in practice? How do we transition from the exhausted rower to the master archer? The shift is from trying to allowing, from forcing to attending. It is not about what you do, but how you do it. The first step is to cultivate deep awareness. You must become a detective of your own mind. Throughout your day, you must catch yourself in the act of trying. When you are in a conversation, are you trying to sound intelligent? Or are you simply listening? When you are at your desk, are you trying to force a brilliant idea? Or are you focused on the process of the work itself, letting the idea emerge? When you feel a negative emotion, is your first instinct to try to get rid of it? Or can you simply observe it? This observation is the first and most crucial action. You cannot change a pattern you are not aware of. The second step is to change your focus from the outcome to the process. The person who tries is obsessed with the goal. The person who is absorbed in the practice. You cannot control the outcome. You cannot control if the audience will love your presentation. You cannot control if the market will respond to your product. You cannot control if you win the match. This focus on the uncontrollable is the source of all your anxiety and trying. What you can control is your preparation. You can control your presence. You can control the process. Fall in love with the act of doing, not the reward of having done. The painter must find his joy in the mixing of the paint and the drag of the brush, not just in the finished canvas. The writer must find his peace in the crafting of a single, perfect sentence, not in the bestseller list. When you are fully absorbed in the process, the self that tries disappears. The division is gone. You are not trying to do the thing. You are the thing. And in that state of flow, you produce your greatest work. The third step is to practice the art of letting go. This is the hardest part. It means letting go of your need to be right. It means letting go of your need to control others. It means letting go of your attachment to a specific future. It means doing your absolute best and then releasing the result to the universe. It is the planting of a seed. You cannot try to make a seed grow. You cannot pull on it, or yell at it, or anxiously watch it every second. That is the energy of trying. The energy of being is different. You find the best soil. You plant the seed at the correct depth. You provide water. You ensure it has sun. You do everything that is within your power to do, with precision and care. And then you let go. You trust the process. You allow nature to do its work. This is the ultimate wisdom of the sage. It is not about passivity. It is about intelligent action. It is about knowing when to row and when to set the sail. It is about knowing when to apply focus and when to surrender. The modern world has trained us to be hammers, trying to force every problem as if it were a nail. The wise person understands that they must also be the water, which flows around obstacles. They must be the seed, which knows how to grow in the dark. They must be the archer, who hits the target by letting go. So, the next time you feel that familiar, anxious, internal tightness, that feeling of trying, stop, breathe. Ask yourself, am I forcing or am I allowing? Am I fighting the river or am I one with the current? Because in all things, the greatest victories are not won. They are allowed to happen. The question is not whether you are willing to try harder. The question is, are you brave enough to stop trying?